links, cool stuff for both Doc's podcast and for Dr. Baird's podcast. So be sure to look for that in your inbox no later than 3 p.m. today. And without further ado, I'm going to get out of their way. And Dr. Bruce Baird and Dr. Chris Hoffpauir, how are y'all doing?
Oh, doing great, Stephen. Thank you. Thanks for being on and giving directions this morning, Chris. Christopher, thank you for showing up this morning. And you've got a lot of info to share, stuff that that's going on. I know you're really connected with organized dentistry, and
absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about first of all, tell me about the business of dentistry. Kind of what made you start doing that, and how did that come about, and then a little bit about your plans over the next few weeks.
Well, I'll tell you, Bruce. The reason I started the business of dentistry, it was kind of really, I think, like a lot of things, kind of like penicillin. It was an accident, right?
Okay.
I was frustrated because every time I'd ask a question about how to run a business correctly, what should I do to make the most profits, or to, make my margin better, I would get the most hateful responses, basically saying, shut up and just practice dentistry and it'll happen. And I know that you, I should say, have always been a huge influence on me. And I've told you several times. I learned a lot from you. But so I'm on these Facebook groups, and I realized they had a little bit of a different psychology, a little bit of a different feel to them than, say, other social media gathering places for dentists.
Right.
And not to name any names, but there wasn't that hostility. And so I said, maybe this would be a good forum to do that. So I made a post in a couple of groups and I said, hey, I'm thinking about making this group where it's discussion of business only.
Yep.
You don't have to be a business owner currently, but if you want to become one, it's a place where we can all share with each other, build each other up, and learn from each other.
Yep.
And it'll be dentist only.
Mm-hmm.
So a few days went by, and I look at it, and I've got 250 members, 300 members. And I went, oh my God, there's 300 other dentists who are as frustrated as I am. And it was really kind of weird because it just skyrocketed. We now have 21,000 dentists on the group. It is the single largest dentist only social media page in the world. And it was kind of crazy because I was celebrating at 300. I got the whole little Spartan thing with 300, and it's a dentist underneath it.
That's right.
It was kind of crazy. It just kind of grew organically because I think I tapped into a frustration that a lot of us have, and that is that clinical and business just sometimes need to be separated because everyone's really passionate about what they do clinically, and it's an art form.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to get two artists who agree on how to do that art form, and they're both right. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
But whenever you look at business, there's one way to do business. It's a very, very simple, it's a complex thing, but it's a very simple thing. It's very straightforward.
I agree 100%. I think, it's been amazing, to watch.
You should. I learned that from you, darn it.
No, I learned the progress of just the entire, because I'm on, the group, and I'm always going on there just to see kind of what's the hot topic. I also like the fact that you kind of keep it in a positive way and don't let a lot of the negativity get in there, and that's very appreciated. But I know you've also been really involved in organized dentistry also, or at least
Absolutely.
Through that. And tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how did you get started? Was it in dental school, and then it's gone on since then?
Well,
or is it
in dental school, all of us were pretty much members of ASDA and the student organizations for AGD as well. But I didn't understand why I should be involved then. And later on, as I got out, I maintained my membership, and I would gripe because every time I saw something happening, I'd say, why doesn't the ADA do something about this? Why doesn't the TDA do something about this? Why doesn't the board do something about this? And at the time, I didn't even have a correct idea of who did what. So I was griping about like the board, and it was maybe the ADA could do something about it, or, the TDA. And I had no idea. So one day, a friend of mine, he said, Chris, you're so passionate about this stuff, and you really you really have an energy about the way that you go about talking about this stuff, but it's hurting our chances of fixing things. Why don't you just join the ADA? If you look at it this way, think of it as a hostile takeover. Join up and get something done and force them to do what it is you think they should do. And I was mad. So I'm going to do that. So I ran for a position. Actually, I was voluntold that I was going to have a position at the local chapter in the 9th District. Good friend of mine, Dr. Milton Howard, he said, "Hey, Chris, what are you doing? You want to be secretary?" And I said, "Well, yeah, why not? You know, I'll help out." I had no idea that was the road to president, right? And so I became president of the 9th District, and I'm going to be president again this coming cycle. I'm also a delegate to the Texas Dental Association for our district. And that kind of came out whenever I got to the point where I started understanding kind of how things worked. And I said, guys, we've got a real problem here with the way that insurance is handled in our state. And we really need to do something about it. So I think that we need to have a universal way of doing verifications. And I think that there should be a web portal so that we could make it really easy. So, because my thought was, hey, when we have a web portal, we can automate that, because I've got some programmers that work for me that use Python and other AI type softwares. And so I thought, well, if we could make a web portal, we could automate it and we could get that done really quickly and build it into software. It'd be great. Well, that's when I found out that Texas only has authority over non-ERISA plans. And so we got it done, and we actually got an amazing comprehensive bill passed that went all the way up to the ADA, and they're still working on it to try to figure out how they can do it nationwide, which is really exciting for me. But man, let me tell you, there's an old saying where I come from back in Lafayette, Louisiana. You don't want to see sausage get made. You just want to enjoy the taste. So I got a real firsthand view of watching sausage get made.
You bet.
It was educational.
You bet. You bet. Well, thank you for all you're doing, for organized dentistry. I go to the business of dentistry to go find out what's going on in the state of Texas, because I know you're so connected. Tell us a little bit about opening back up, because I know the state of Texas, we're going to, I guess tomorrow is the day they can go back to work. And so tell me what you're doing.
Well, tomorrow is the day that the executive order expires. And we are absolutely allowed to reopen at 100% tomorrow. In order for that to happen, though, the governor said, okay, the board has got to come up with recommendations for how the reopening happens, what PPE have to be used, et cetera, some guidelines. Well, they put out their guidelines. They had a meeting on, I believe on Monday. Yeah. And they came up with their guidelines. Tuesday, they voted it in. They sent it to the governor's office, and he denied it. So yesterday, they had an emergency meeting again to try to send something off, and they've sent it off to the governor. I'm hoping that turns out well, because right now, the Hygienist Association in Texas is fighting to keep us closed, or at the very least to keep us from having hygiene open. And I kind of get some of what they're talking about, but in all honesty, universal precautions is what we've been doing forever.
That's right.
And universal precautions is enough as long as your mask is well fitted for you to be fine. And really the recommendations of the board were that if you don't have an N95 fitted mask, to wear a face shield and to wear your normal level 2 or level 3 mask, and you'd be fine.
Wow.
But evidently they took some umbrage at that, and they don't want to go back to work. I suppose that they're enjoying, and I'm going to get so much hate mail on this one, but I suppose they're enjoying their time off drawing unemployment.
Yeah. It's a very difficult time. We're not going to start right back up with hygiene. We're starting Monday, seeing patients, and hygiene. I think we're going to try to push 2 weeks out. And I think it is just, it's because of, the hygienist concern. That was the first thing that came out from everybody was that. But what's really amazing in this whole thing, you've got states all over. I've been reading, I've been constantly online for the last,
Oh,
6
absolutely.
weeks. Yeah. And, the state of Illinois comes out with their recommendations. Then here comes Maryland. Then you've got upstate out of New York City. And and they're all a little bit different. And that's where all the confusion is. So, I don't know. I'm kind of along the lines with you. I was with, we had Peter Bolden on a couple of weeks ago, and he brought up, the fact that as dentists, I've been practicing 40 years. So it's like, I've been exposed to about every virus and bacteria and everything else that you could, and I don't get sick, so, I've got a lot of antibodies. Fortunately, I'm in good health, but I tell you,
Right.
It's scary. It's absolutely scary, kind of what's going on. But I do think we use our, universal precautions. And I did a webinar yesterday. We had about 300 people on it. It was all about PPE. And I gave them sites they could go to and look at different tools. And you've got guys all over using, and they all have an opinion. It's kind of like the artist you were saying. Everybody's got an opinion on what they want, but there's no real guidance. Do you see that we're going to continue to get additional guidance?
I believe that the guidance will continue to be as confused as it is right now.
Okay.
The truth of the matter is, Bruce, is that science isn't something anyone should have an opinion on. It's simply something that is true. And in my background, I have a degree in molecular and cellular biology, and I was published 4 times before I graduated.
Wow.
So I know scientific method. I know how to read a study. Really what we're doing right now is working. Now, when we introduce hygiene, we've got to do something about the hang time of the particles. Now, what that thing is, I don't know. Maybe it's going to be HEPA filters. Maybe you're going to have one of those silly looking things that suctions out of the patient's mouth.
Yeah.
Maybe the Isolite and the IsoDry and things like the Kona work well enough. But we do have to do something to make sure that we get those airborne particles out just because of the amount of hang time. When you use an ultrasonic in specific, it creates a nebulizing effect and breaks the particles down into under 0.5 microns. And that makes a hang time of between an hour and 3 hours. And so you want to get that out of the air. Splatter isn't really a problem. And we've dealt with splatter every day. We've dealt with aerosols every day. We just weren't ever cognizant of it. And we really didn't think about it. Now we're being forced to think about it. But it's just kind of like, hell, whenever you began working, you were a wet finger dentist.
Yep.
You didn't wear gloves.
No.
All of this universal precaution came out because of the HIV scare back in the 80s, right?
Yep.
And that's when everything changed.
It did.
So
it did.
that's kind of my look at it. It's going to be a new normal. Whatever that new normal is, it's just going to be a new normal. We might as well just get it done,
Get it over with and make it happen. But yeah, I've been,
Absolutely.
I've been to the side yesterday. I was on with a lot of the productive dentists, all of our coaching clients and everything yesterday afternoon.
Great program, by the way, folks. If you aren't a member and you haven't checked it out, I'm going to plug you for you, Bruce. It is where I learned most of what I know about business. So
well, I appreciate it. But I'm talking to everybody and I'm kind of getting those questions. Like one of them was, now, do we have to go to a physician to get our mask fitted? Because that's a requirement, like in Kentucky and all. And I said, well, what happens when you take your mask off and you go back the next morning, or when you change masks? Are you going to have to go to a physician who doesn't wear a mask and never has worn a mask? Right. And I think we should be our own authorities on that. I was like, it made me angry, just the fact that somebody thought we're so incompetent that we have to have a physician help us fit our mask.
Well, there's a very unpopular. Can I say something unpopular, Bruce?
Oh gosh, I say it all the time, so go for it.
So, I am of the very, very unpopular opinion, and you may differ from me on this one, but I think that the time has come for dentistry to be taken into the fold of medical. I really do, and I hate to say that because there's so much autonomy that it's going to cost us, but frankly, folks, when the president of the ADA spoke to the chief medical officer in this administration, dentists weren't going to be allowed to start up at all. We weren't going to be allowed to be open at all, even for emergencies, because they hadn't thought about the fact that we keep patients out of the emergency room and that was going to cause an undue burden on the healthcare system.
Okay.
And the reason that we weren't thought of is because we're not thought of as physicians of the mouth, and we need to be. because frankly, our jobs are important.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the cost of that respect and the cost of that consideration and being at the table is going to be some autonomy. It can't just be the Wild West.
Right.
And I don't know that a lot of dentists are going to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I know in our practice, we've really converted into this oral systemic link. And
Exactly.
also, I think that the physicians are starting, at least in my community, because of the way we market education. I don't market 2-for-1 happy hour, but we market about, DNA, and my physician, I've talked to him at length about it. And, he actually has other docs that he's told the same story. So now any surgeries, they're coming to see us to check their periodontal conditions. And so I can see it starting to happen. And I think hopefully it'll continue. And I see that as one of the big growth areas in dentistry is this overall health of the, of the body. And it comes from the mouth. I mean, we're looking at spirochetes, looking at connections to not only stroke and heart attack causative, but we're also talking Alzheimer's, and we're talking, lots of different things. So have you been looking at that in your practice also, as far as connecting into that?
I started doing oral systemic probably back in 2014. Mm-hmm. And the reason was that I had a patient who came in with her daughter, and her name was Shirley. And she would come in, and she's always tired and, whatever. One day her daughter was with her, and she said, "Doc, do you make sleeping appliances?" I said, "What, for snoring?" She said, "Yes. My mother snores like a freight train. I've been living with her because, she's living with me now. We sold her place, whatever. Sure. And she snores so loud, I can't sleep." And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely. I can make something like that." And so I fabricated a silent night for her. And she comes in. I always do a 2-week post-op. Anytime we do anything big, I want to follow it. And it's a great opportunity to have further conversations with the patient at that point. So she comes in at her 2-week post-op, and I said, "Shirley, how are you doing?" She said, "Doc, I'm doing fantastic." Just peppy, energetic. And I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "So I guess the snoring went away?" "No, not at all. I'm still snoring like a freight train." I said, "Well, why are you so happy?" "Well, I just feel so energetic, Dr. Hoffpauir. I got up this morning at 7:00 and I cleaned my whole house." And I said, "Well, hold on, Shirley. What time do you usually get up?" She says, "Usually I can't get out of bed before 11. I'm just so tired." And I said, "Well, Shirley, I don't know a whole lot about it, but it sounds like you may have sleep apnea. We may accidentally have treated sleep apnea here." Yep. And this was before the whole big argument between the medical board, and that I believe came the next year, if I'm not mistaken, 2015. Yep. And so I said, I better look into this, because I know we're not allowed to diagnose sleep apnea. I wonder if we're allowed to treat it without a physician helping us or whatever. And so I started taking Kent Smith's classes. And, Dr. Dasani and several other really, really smart people, way smarter than I am. And I started learning about sleep apnea. So the really funny thing is she had never put it on her medical history. I didn't know she had sleep apnea, but guess what? She had a CPAP at home she wasn't wearing because she hated it.
Oh yeah.
And I asked her why. She said, "It makes me feel like I have gas." And I'm like, "You're going to die, Shirley."
Yes.
So I've been doing it for quite some time. We have a microscope that I don't use nearly enough. Right. There's my philosophy, my thought is, you have a patient in the chair, you swab them, put it on the scope in some Diff Quick, a color fast stain. Sure. And you project it onto a 75-inch TV in front of them, along with their x-rays and their oral photos. Oh, yeah. And as you're having the conversation, you just don't talk to them about it at all. So you're having them look at that, and they're wondering what the heck's going on and why all those things are swimming around.
That's right. Right? That's right.
So my thinking is that's going to start some conversations and make the conversation about periodontal disease easier. But frankly, it's just been hard to get it implemented in the practice. I started it, and then I lost my hygienist, and then I was, it's just so hard to get someone up to speed with all the other systems. And then COVID hit, so I know.
Yeah, we've been using the microscope in the office, and Michelle Hudson, who's now become a big lecturer around the country on this oral systemic, and she has really done an amazing job. And of course, Megna and Kent are both PDA docs that have been with us for a long time. But Kent is both of them do an amazing course on sleep apnea. So if any of you guys want to take a course, that's a good one to take. Stephen, can you check? I know that you have a hard stop, but I wanted, if there's any questions.
I actually moved my other meeting so that I could chat with you for longer, Bruce. I just thought it was important to get to talk with you.
I appreciate that for sure. Stephen, do you have any? And that's what Stephen was hoping. He was saying maybe he'll just get in on a roll and forget what time it is.
Doc's going to play his guitar. He's going to be in the vibe. Yeah, he's going to say, oh,
yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. We have one question kind of coming in so far, so maybe we'll just do this one. I think it'll spark some real interesting conversations about the business of dentistry for sure. So I'm so confused about using my PPP loan. I was funded 10 days ago. I was funded 10 days ago. I only have 2 employees on payroll of my 13. We are in Illinois, and our stay-at-home has been extended until the end of May. So do I hire back all my employees right away and use the loan, or do I wait till we are closer to the opening?
Well, there's a date certain of when you have to use that. It's, I believe, within 2 weeks of having received it, if I'm not mistaken. Bruce?
Yeah, what it is, you've got this 8-week period after it's funded. So the clock's ticking, 8 weeks is already
keep
ticking
changing
for them.
those rules.
I know. And so what you're going to find happen, and this is the way I would use if I was funded with my PPE. You've got to look at this as it's either going to be a forgiven loan and it's going to be a grant. And at that time, you're going to want to bring in, once you get funded, you're going to want to bring all your employees back. And for 8 weeks, you can pay the employees, and that will be a forgiven loan. When you're not seeing patients, that makes it extremely difficult because you're actually paying people to be at work. It might be an opportunity to, redo the office, redo systems, work with the team. So you could use it that way. The other way is you just stick it in a bank account. You let everybody go stay on their enhanced unemployment.
Right.
And then when they say open, you try to get your team back, and maybe a portion of it would be forgiven. But everybody's in the same boat. What I was telling people initially was go ahead and apply for the PPP and then tell the bank you don't want it funded for a certain time. Well, they got sharp on that, gave more guidance and said, no, it'll have to be funded within 10 days. So a lot of the docs did not get that first loan because they were waiting. And so now we've got people funded. I know Comprehensive Finance was funded last week. I know that Productive Dentist Academy is going to be funded tomorrow. And the good thing about CF is we have kept our employees and we got funded. So, we're going to continue working. At PDA, we had to move people around and some people working from home and doing that kind of stuff. So we've got some unique opportunities right now. But to answer that question about the PPE, it's kind of a give or take. You can use it as a loan, 1% loan for 2 years. And the truth about that is, in my opinion, we're going to see thousands of people refinancing that loan and saying, okay, Mr. Banker, I can't pay you back this $100,000 because I needed it for my business for whatever, maybe to pay rent or to pay something that wasn't employee related. Is that kind of how you've looked at it too?
I am. I'll be honest with you. I think that's what a lot of people are going to be doing. I think that even if you follow all of the rules, there's a very good chance that you're not going to be able to get back the 75% of your employees that it requires for forgiveness. And so let's face it, there's a lot of people who want to stay home. Look at the hygienist right now. They want to stay home.
Yep.
So it's required that you hire them back. But you can't force them to come back. I think there's a lot of people who are going to have some very unpleasant surprises. I actually, for myself, I did not take the PPP. I was about to send the form, and I just thought about it, and I said, do I really want more debt? And is it going to really actually do something for my practice at this point? And I just decided I didn't want more debt.
Yep.
I'd rather run as clean of a ship as possible and have that. And I did think about just taking it out as a low interest loan, but because of the fact that the rules are constantly changing, my concern was there are no actual penalties in place right now that have been listed of what happens if you use it for something other. They just said it won't be forgiven, but they do specifically say it's fraud if you use it for some other reason. So what are the penalties?
Yeah, it's going to be, you know, what I was joking about yesterday with PPE is, you know, talking to people and saying, so what are you in here for? Oh, I didn't have an N95 mask. And, oh, really? Okay. How many years did you get? Oh, I'm in here for 10 years penalty. I'm thinking, who in the hell's going to even try to enforce this stuff? So
absolutely. Well, at this point, you make an amazing point there, is that there won't possibly be any enforcement unless they grow the government even more to enforce it.
That's true.
You know, at this point, they're saying that the IRS is 2 years behind on audits.
Yeah. I just got an audit first time in a long time, since the mid 80s. So, oh, well, I guess they've been wanting me for a while. So we'll go through it.
That's what the CPAs are for, right?
Yeah, that's right. I just look at them and go, so what are we going to do? You know, so I can tell some great stories about my last audit, but I won't. But anyway, it's a big deal. So when going back for you guys, so you're planning on going back on Monday to see patients, operative type stuff, and then have hygiene come later? Is that the way you're doing it? I
am, in all honesty, I had just hired a new hygienist right when all this stuff hit. Wow. So she hasn't even been day one in the practice yet. So it's going to be interesting. I'll probably bring her in once we have a date certain of when we can open up hygiene. I'll probably bring her in just to make sure that she's trained in my systems before we begin seeing patients, and then just kind of slowly work her in. I'm thinking that most likely, I definitely myself am going to be staging this growth. Because, you know, the last thing we want to do, we definitely want to get back and start making some money and treating patients, because this work is just like we tell our patients, it's just going to get worse the longer this takes. Well, in a very real way, we've been set up for having a whole bunch of emergencies, right?
You bet.
Now, I'm thinking I'm probably going to bring back at 1/3 and then move up to 60% and then move up to 100% of my normal load, which I have to say makes it very easy with the Productive Dental Association's scheduling by productivity.
Right.
You know, exactly what you usually do.
Yeah. You know, what I've been telling people now the last 4 weeks, this is the first time in history we've ever had an opportunity to actually engineer our own schedule. You know, usually it's, you know, you've been doing it a certain way, and then we teach you a different way, productive scheduling. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, I already got people booked. How do I do this? Well, now you may have 200-300 patients. And what I've told people to do is rank them from the highest production to the lowest, and then take that same list and rank them from highest need to lowest. And if you're doing 500 an hour in production, then this is a great opportunity to actually schedule $1,000 an hour production when you get back. And my goal for our docs is to double their productivity for however many weeks that they've been closed. And that gets them back on track for where we'd be. And hopefully we don't have a second wave of this and all of that. I mean, there's so much uncertainty, but I do know it's the first time in history, at least the first time in the 40 years I've been doing this, that we actually have had a stop, can't see people, and now we can put them back in that specific spots that can increase productivity.
And if you have to tell your team that the reason you're doing this, I'm not suggesting being dishonest with your team, but in a very real way, the way that Productive Dental Association recommends scheduling is a great way to stagger patients and make sure you have enough room between patients to do your due diligence and make sure those rooms are completely cleaned and keep our patients and our team safe. And so if you just have to tell them that's why you're doing it, then that's fine.
You bet.
But you should be doing it.
Yeah.
And I know I've got a built-in schedule. Bruce, the day that we closed, I had a $35,000 day scheduled that day.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to think about how much money I've lost.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I know it makes you wonder. And so for us, stepping back, putting people in the right place. And I think it's also a great opportunity to train your team on why do we schedule this way? This is a new way of scheduling. It gives us more time. We're not running behind at lunch and we're not running behind at the end of the day. So, and we actually did a webinar last week, a couple of them on scheduling for COVID-19. So it's been something that's been on my mind. So Stephen, do we have any other questions that have come down the pipe here?
Yes, of course we do. All right, so from anonymous attendee, always hear that, anonymous attendee. Can the PPO loan be used for bonuses?
The PPP?
PPP.
Yeah, they probably meant PPP, but yes, they said PPO.
Yeah, well, the PPO loan, the PPP loan can, I mean,
at this point, you may need to use the PPP for your PPE.
Yeah, PPE and then you're PP'd out. So, my understanding is it goes to payroll. So I think it could be. I know some guys are actually bonusing out some of it for forgiveness. That's a little bit scary. I've actually had people that, I won't go into it, but I've heard so many different ways that people are getting around these regulations that have been really in this gray area without guidance. And now, I mean, from our perspective, in the practice, we didn't do a PPP, but I know that, with the other businesses I've had, we did. And because we really felt the need to make sure we had as much cash on hand as we could to protect our business. And that's just the way we've thought about it. So, it is low interest loan, for whatever reason. Do you think,
Bruce, one of my biggest concerns here is that the practices like yours that are paid off, they really don't need this. They really shouldn't, because if they're running their practices well, they should have 2 or 3 months of expenses saved.
Yep.
What worries me is this is going to hit, and who needs this the most is those new dentists who just opened their practice are already swimming in debt.
Yep.
And that worries me a lot because it's going to really raise the bar on what they have to produce and what they have to net out,
right,
specifically to be able to cover this new loan plus their practice origination loan. Unless they can somehow get all that wrapped up together, it's going to be pretty tough.
You bet. Yeah. And the questions that I keep, I keep hearing are actually the statements. I heard England, they were talking about in the UK that 70% of, they were fearing that 70% of the general practices in England were going to be closed permanently. And I'm going 70%. My estimate in the US is probably 8 to 10% of practices aren't going to make it through this. A 6-week period of time, they're not going to be able to make it. If it keeps going, I don't know.
I like your thinking. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. I think it's going to be 15 to 20%, but I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I very much hope I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, if it was to drag on, and if it was to have, let's just say we open back up for, the end of May, June, and July, and then all of a sudden we find this big rush of COVID, and we had to close again for a month or two. Oh man, I think you're right. I think it could be a lot higher than that, even, the 30 to 40% range. One of the things that we've been teaching, we did a webinar on predictive analytics, and one of our categories with predictive, and it's basically running your business like a business, but we had, retained earnings, and that retained earnings is what, you keep putting that away. It's a percentage you pay for team. You pay this for, it's a rainy day fund, I think is what Texas calls it. I mean, but it's a fund that we use only when we need it, or if we make a decision we want to buy a piece of equipment, we pay cash for it. We're not, we're not putting a lot of trouble with that. So anyway, those are all things that I'm trying to talk to dentists now, and I know you are on the business of dentistry. It is give them as much information to run their business like a business, and to just become a better businessman during this 4 weeks. And that's really why we've been doing these webinars, and we've been talking some about compassionate finance on the webinars, because we're going to be an interesting time. Patients are going to lose between 50 and 80 points on their FICO scores. Now, compassionate doesn't just look at FICO scores, it also looks at their checking history. But and what's interesting is we have not seen a huge drop in payments yet. Do I think we will? Yeah, I do. But last week, we had 14 patients pay off their loans, in one day. No, it was 24. 24 paid off their loans.
They got their stimulus check.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm sitting there going, wow. And Abella, which is the accounts receivable software, it's been collecting just like clockwork. So a lot of people, like my daughters, I have 2 that are school teachers, they're still getting full salary. They're teaching virtually. So there's a lot of people out there that are still working. Of course, we have 30 million that don't have a job right now, but they're all wanting to pay. So you've had experience with compassionate.
Oh, absolutely. I believe at one point I had financed either $260,000 or $270,000 through. You can probably correct my numbers. I know you looked into it more recently than I did, but it was very, very helpful to me. Particularly, it was helpful to me getting out of network with insurances. And that is one of the things I'd love. There's 2 things I have questions for, and I'd love to hear you talk about them, because you've been through one of them, and that is the recession that's coming and the hyperinflation that's coming, because we just dumped $2.5 trillion. We doubled our national debt.
Yep.
So what is that going to say? What is, and Aaron Gorg made a great point when I interviewed him the other day. He said, it's going to be the new normal. We're all in the same boat. The boat's just sinking, but we're all in the same boat.
Yep.
So it's going to be the new normal. Everyone's in that same position. And so it doesn't really change your position, he said.
Sure.
And I think that's a great point. But what are your thoughts? I mean, how did you survive during that hyperinflation period? And do you think this is a good time for people to start looking at getting out of network, since I'm pretty sure big businesses are going to start dropping their dental and their vision plans, because it's one way that you can save money and recoup the losses?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that we're poised with Compassionate Finance, really, and Abella, to help patients be able to afford the dentistry. Making dentistry affordable is something that dentists just haven't done. We know we have third-party financing available, and that takes care of the A's and B's, but there's nobody helping anybody below a 660. There's nobody helping them. And believe me, when people lose 50 to 80 points off their FICO, plus you have Synchrony Financial, which is Care Credit, and the others, Wells Fargo Bank, all of them are resetting their guidelines on who's eligible, and they're reducing credit card limits. So money's going to get tight. So if you don't have some way of making dentistry affordable, you're going to suffer. And I can say that in all honesty, because in 08 and 09, I increased my production every single year for the last 20 years in dentistry. But in 08, 09, that's really where the birth of Compassionate Finance came, because I thought, good Lord, we should be able to finance some of this. When I asked Jeff Buski, my partner, and he said, you think we could finance ortho? I said, well, people have been financing ortho for years with no interest, and just say, if you don't pay, I'm going to pull your brackets off. Well, he said, if we could get 2,000, could we finance them? If we could get I said, well, how much do we have in it? He goes, $415. And I went, how much do we charge? He goes, $6,000. I was like, well, yeah, we should be able to finance that. And then I started thinking about CERAC restorations at $35 or 30, and I'm charging $1,200. Now I'm sitting here going, okay, now why can't I finance this? And the 3 reasons: number 1, we don't know how, didn't know the rules. Number 2, we've been told not to be a bank. And number 3,
I think that was a huge mistake by a lot of consultants. Now there's obviously, you want to do it in as careful of a way as possible, but if you're not providing ways for people to pay for things, you're just not going to have as much work getting done.
That's right. That's right. And we see that, we see that on an ongoing basis, even now. But, what's funny is we're seeing compassionate being used now. Yes, we had a drop off on the number of new loans originated, but we're already starting to see that ramp back up. We were doing $200,000 to $300,000 a day in notes for dentists. And all of a sudden that dropped to, $5,000 a day. It reminded me of, the early days, when I went, hey, we got $5,000 worth of loans today. That was great. But we're going to see that. And my anticipation is going to be that every dentist in the country is going to need to have some new financial arrangements. I really believe it.
I agree.
Or they're going to suffer. And not a problem.
And things like Abella are going to allow you, and no one wants to do this, people, and no one in their right mind wants to reduce their team when it's working well. But the thing is that if times get lean, you're going to have to make some hard decisions as a business owner. And if you have something that automates a process that usually takes one employee and it costs less than that employee and is more efficient at the job, well, that's just the right decision. It doesn't make it personal. Maybe you can even retrain that employee for some other position.
Yeah, what we look at with Abella is, it's $299 a month, and we've waived that. I don't know if we told you that. I think we have, but we've waived the setup fee. We've waived the fee for the monthly until July 1st, so that we've signed up, I don't know, more people in the last 4 weeks than we did all of last year. And we just said,
smart decision on their part too, because honestly, they needed it.
And we have docs that are one guy, and we're going to have to get him on the show, but he collected $33,000 last week out of his AR, and he was never going to see that money because all of his teams laid off or furloughed. So this is just kind of free money. So that's the thing that I would look at. Do we have some poll questions that I need to put up?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the first one's going to be about PPE and antibodies, but then we do have some questions when it comes to kind of
I'm just launching that poll over here, Chris. We're talking about, do you have enough PPE to last a month? Do you have any antibody test kits? And we've been getting pretty amazing responses. About 40, we've been doing this every day, but about 40% of people have enough for a month and about 60% don't. And we'll see what it is today. We'll see if it's staying consistent. Yesterday, I put out some different places you could get some PPE, but you never know day to day. Oh, we're out now, or we're out of the N95. So, and I got a good lesson yesterday, which is with the docs, the PDA docs. I asked, I don't know the difference between the KN95 and the N95, and the N95 has been approved and by the U.S. and by, and the
KN,
other,
I believe, is manufactured in Korea. And there's also a P95, P98, and P100. Those are actually more appropriate for dentistry than the N95 because they also are oil resistant. And we know for a fact, as we're prepping composites, we have some oil discharge. That's why you're supposed to pump your potentiometer on your handpiece to get rid of that first discharge of water because of residual oil from the cleaning process. And so I think that they made a poor decision just going with N95 because those are national standards for the CDC for all job positions. They really should probably have done the P95, but it is equivalent. And I believe that most of the rules say are equivalent. So that's something else, since people aren't rushing to buy the P95 because they don't know the name.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. And we're looking at this, we've got about 43% of the people that have voted on it. And guess what? We're at 40%, 60%, 40% have enough, 60% don't. And that's been every day. That's been our deal. And nobody has. Yesterday, we had one person who has testing kits, and we sent out where you could get them. How are we going to use them? Of course, I want to know. I want some guidance on that. I know I'd like to test my team and find out if we have any antibodies and that kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts on that?
What are your thoughts? I was going to ask yours. Here's my thoughts. First of all, this is part of that whole dentists becoming medical doctors thing.
Right.
I think we should be having access to these tests just as dentists. But if we were medical doctors, it'd be a lot easier to run a panel of tests on your patient every single time they come in. It would be better for their health. That's one point. the next thing I'm thinking is that when we run these antibody tests, you're going to be looking at two different types of antibodies, right? You get your IgG and your IgM. And you want to make sure that a person has had the virus, but is no longer shedding. Then you have a safe workforce, right? Science tells us that it's very, very likely that unless this thing shifts its strain again, which can happen with the coronavirus, it is a shifting strain virus, much like influenza. And so it can shift reading frames, if that makes sense to everybody, which means that the antigens aren't necessarily going to be the same that you're protecting against.
Right.
But when you do test someone who has had it already, it's very, very likely that they will be immune to it again or in the future.
Right.
So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, all of our workforce needs to have already had it or has not had it.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure you keep out the people who currently have it and are shedding.
Sure.
So
yeah,
it seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I'm on the same deal, but it's nice to have a molecular biologist on with us this morning to figure this out.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to nerd it up too much, guys.
No, but I didn't realize that was your background, but that's awesome. That's cool. Stephen, we have any more questions on?
Yeah, you got to put Dr. Hoff on the spot. If you mention a product here, you got to know where we can get it. Does anybody know where we can get a P95 mask by any chance?
Well, right now online, they're sold out just about everywhere, but you do still find them in like little hardware stores because the P95 was actually specifically made for spraying oil-based paints. And so some of the smaller like Ace Hardware's little mom and pop hole in the wall type places where you can't order from them online, they will still have some. I actually found some at our local hardware store.
I'll be darned. That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, because we did a PPE yesterday, and we'll do PPE-based lecture on Monday as well. So maybe I can dig up that link, and I'll include that. By the way, Dr. Baird, you got a million thank yous for all those resources you sent out yesterday. I was answering emails probably 11 o'clock last night. Everybody loved all those links.
Awesome. Well, I was just doing what everybody's doing right now, just going online and finding different locations, different things that I could find that had availability. And I kind of qualified myself, Doc, because I said, hey, they may be out. This could be an illegal site. I don't even know. I mean, but please don't order 5,000.
Mass Gestapo will be asking for your papers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was worried. So, but I told him, hey, buyer beware, but I wouldn't order $5,000 worth of masks. I might order 10 and then see how that goes. And then when you get them, we just got 10, now I'm going to say KN95s from China. I got 10 of them 2 days ago, but I ordered them a month ago. So, who knows? So it's,
my suggestion to people out there would be, we're so used to, and everyone is used to, we're all used to shopping online now. I mean, and because of social distancing, we're even more so. My suggestion would be go analog, get out, walk to your local not Home Depot, but your local home improvement store, particularly the off-brand non-big box stores. And you may be surprised at what you find there. Cool. Now, we did have a question that I wanted to specifically answer. They said, do you see HEPA filters in each operatory? And I may have a very different opinion, and I should disclose that I have a vested interest because I've just created a company to create and import HEPA filters into the United States.
Cool.
We're not ready to release that yet, but we will be releasing a deal with some very steep discounts from American-made air purifiers that have FEMA approval, which to me, that's really nice. And we've upgraded the filters to a level 4, level 5 HEPA with a mercury filter if you'd like to add it. But I do see HEPA filters being in every operatory, if only to make your patients feel safe. And I know there's a lot of people out there, they're going crazy and they're saying, if you're doing all these special things like using UV and this and that and the other, you shouldn't be advertising that because that's not fair to other dentists. Guys, I'm sorry, this is business.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to hate on me, you can send all my hate mail to the deardocpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, if nothing else, it increases your unique selling proposition.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So,
right
Bruce,
there.
what are your thoughts on that?
I'm 100% aligned. You know, this is a great opportunity. Well, I've recommended yesterday, go out and do live Facebook events for, you know, in your local
Absolutely.
area, do live Facebook and say, hey, this is, you know, Dr. Baird. And these are the new things that we're doing now. And we've got the HEPA filter, we've got this, we've got the elephant nose that goes in. We have the best mask. You're going to be wearing a mask. These are the things that we're doing now to make it sure that you're safe. And what you'll find is you're going to be dragging patients from a lot of other practitioners that aren't going to take the time or to do it. And I'm not trying to take anyone else's patients. It's just marketing 101. You know, if people feel safe and you can put that out as, hey, this is a safe place, then they're going to come see you. That's my.
So one of the other things I rampantly stole this idea from someone else. It was a beautiful idea. She figured out a way to tie a regular level 2, level 1, level 3 mask or normal medical masks in such a way that it tucks all the edges and corners in and makes it a much better face fit. I actually went on and I did a PSA for my local community and posted it to our our Facebook page for our town, which has 35,000 members. And I said, hey guys, I just want to make sure that you guys are safe out there. I've been seeing a lot of people wearing their masks like this or like this, and it just doesn't help you. And I thought maybe if I showed you how to wear a mask properly, that it would keep you safer. And you don't sell your practice that way. They look for you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's all about education. It's not about, you know, 2-for-1 happy hour. It's not about that stuff. So, you know, interesting. We've got some questions out here. Another poll question. Do you believe having multiple revenue streams will be important in the future?
Yes.
And do you believe patients?
It's important now. What are you talking about?
Yes. Do you believe patients will be more cash conservative moving forward? Well, this is an interesting poll. We have 33% have voted. I'd love for you to vote. But it's pretty well overwhelmingly obvious that it's a yes and a yes, 100% so far. And what do I do, and what are you going to do to help patients be able to afford things? That really is where some type of in-house financing, to me, it doesn't have to be compassionate finance, but I would, you know, buyer beware. If somebody tells you that they do no credit checks and everybody's 100% approved, run, because it's a scam.
Right.
And, you know, so bottom line is you're going to need to have some new financial arrangements. And
can I share a story, Bruce?
Sure.
I'm going to tell on myself again. I do this every time you and I talk. You know where I'm going already. Okay, guys. So I was using compassionate finance for years, and it was a great product, and I got a better offer from somebody else. And so I switched over to a company called Simple Pay. Now, you guys may remember that Simple Pay went bankrupt because they're over-promising and under-delivering. And I got screwed out of, can I say screwed on your podcast? I got screwed out of a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and we have people that, we actually have these companies that come and go, but they come to us before they go out of business. And they say, will you guys take over these loans? And we go, no, we won't. We're not taking over those loans, but thanks for sharing. And I joke about the guy in Michigan, and Michigan's a state that you can't charge up to 18% interest. You can only charge 7%. I think we can pick up another 2% on origination. But bottom line is, a dentist come up and he said, hey, I've been doing this for years, doc. It works great. And I'm lecturing up in Michigan. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, I'm on the Upper Peninsula. I was like, okay. I said, he goes, I have over $1.5 million that people are paying me. And I was like, really? I said, that's amazing. And it was done. I don't know exactly, but he said, I said, what kind of interest rate you charging? He goes, 18%. He's had $1.5 million paying him 18%. And when I pulled him aside, of course, I didn't say anything in the group, but I said, hey, dude, you can't charge 18%. And he went, really? And then he asked me, he said, well, do you guys think you could take over all my loans? I go, no, I can't take over those loans. You know, but I would be concerned, because if one person realized that you were over usury in that state, you'd have a class action lawsuit against you.
Absolutely.
And so anyway, it's just knowing the rules. And I think that people, you know, multiple revenue streams. I always tell people with compassionate finance, have a separate account. It's your new business. It's your financing business. And we've got docs right now that are bringing in $30,000 a month. well, it's a whole lot better to be in that 30,000 a month coming in on work you did 2 years ago and coming in consistently than it is to be having to worry about a PPP loan to pay your team. So, that's where we're at. I know we're ended up. Any more questions, Stephen?
Yeah, of course you guys have questions. They're piling up over here, but I knew you guys go back and forth so well. You guys are grazing the edges of a lot of these questions, so I think some of them will go quick. So, do you see HEPA filters in each hygiene room?
Answer already. I said yes.
Yes.
All right.
And I would also recommend one in your reception area.
Absolutely.
And at this point, I would recommend removing every other chair at least, or at least distancing them.
Yep. Good call.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't had anybody kind of mention that kind of distancing in the hops yet. Okay, can you get partial forgiveness on the PPP loan? If you don't fully meet the requirements of forgiveness, is forgiveness all or nothing?
My understanding is it's not all or nothing. There'll be percentages. We just don't know the rules on the percentages yet. And even some of the banks are coming up with their own rules, like Bank of America. And, I noticed Frost Bank has done 12,200 applications. This is as of yesterday on Fox Business. And Bank of America had done 1,000. And Frost Bank is a regional bank in San Antonio, Texas, but yet they're doing these loans all day and all night, whereas B of A and some of the big ones, first of all, they haven't been. So they made up new rules. So yes is the answer, I think.
All
yes.
right. All right, from our friend Dr. Virginia McMillan here. If a dentist/business owner hasn't received any EIDL, any PPE, any stimulus check, is there a problem resubmitting paperwork to the SBA?
No, there's not a problem with it. You should definitely resubmit, particularly those who use the first website. Whenever they did the first website and they pulled it down so that they could streamline the process, they actually flushed all applicants. And so if you were on that first one, you definitely should be reapplying. And frankly, folks, even though all of the funds are gone, if you intend to get it, you should apply anyway. There is a lot of noise right now that there will be a second round of funding. She's only going to sink us further in the long run with the hyperinflation, but it is what it is. You've got to get America back to work.
Yep. Yeah. And you're going to see, there's some PPP money right now available. If I was in that situation, Virginia, I opened up a bank account in downtown Anacortes, Washington, because that's where Productive Dentist, so that we could go to a local bank. We set up an account there. They did our application in one afternoon, and we're going to get funded tomorrow. And that was Tuesday, and we're going to get funded on Friday. So, yeah, and I wanted to wait as long as possible.
I have to say, Bruce, I'm surprised that you didn't know it up in Delaware.
We have been, it's our company headquarters. We are a Delaware Corp, though. So, but yeah, we're a Delaware Corp, and that gives us a little freedom. So
it's one of the only places in the world that's more tax friendly than Florida and Texas. It's
That's right. Stephen, we got some more questions.
Yeah, is AirDoc Pro your company? No, but I did put a discount code in there. Our guest, Dr. Chris Bowman, had a discount code last week, so I just added that in the chat. So probably why that is there. We actually had somebody say, "Hey, I used that code last week. I got my AirDoc Pro. I'm ready to go." Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Send that to me separately.
Yeah. You got it. All right. Is that N95 reusable? Some people are using UV light to disinfect for reusage.
Yeah, the UV light, actually, they released some guidelines from the CDC as to how long it takes to sterilize them in different ways. I would suggest that anyone who wants to reuse it, please go to the CDC and download the guidelines. I am not going to speak to what I read because I want to make sure that you get the most recent updated guidelines. But be aware that it takes up to 3 hours depending upon what type of sterilization you're using. Right.
I've seen the same.
And then, sorry, she meant P95, not N95.
Yes, and yes, and KN, yes.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, all of them. Get what you can. because I honestly believe if you have a face shield and a regular mask on, you're going to be fine. But hey, that's my feel. But unless the N95 police come get us, so
right. Hey man, look, I'm going to shave up and wear my old respirator that I used to wear when I was working in the environmental field. That'd be.
I was going to ask you, did you shave for that reason so that you could make sure and seal your mask?
I did. I'm missing it. My wife says she loves this whole baby face thing, but so I'm kind of messing with her. I'm growing out some stubble because she hates this phase. So if I hear fear, I can work her into me growing a beard again.
Yes. So it's all good. Any more, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good one for you, Dr. Baird. Any suggestions for a company that would help production increases?
Yes. Productive Dentist Academy is a very good company to go to. Of course, I started it, but we help docs routinely grow 300 an hour in productivity, and it's something we do.
Absolutely.
Doc came through a couple of times, and it's like Kent Smith came through 5 times. Magna.
Oh, thank God. I feel so much better because I felt like I was such a slacker. I was like, I'm the only person who had to go through this damn thing 2 times. So that makes me feel a lot better.
Kent came through 5 times. Magna's been 4 or 5. So you're a slacker. We got to get you back. So that's
absolutely.
All right. And I just put a link for Productive Dentist Academy back into the chat there. So give that a click for sure.
And I'm going to drop something in there too, real quick, Stephen.
Yeah, please drop it away. Just make sure you.
This is the link to how to fold those masks.
Oh man, you are reading ahead. Okay, so Dr. Song, she asked, "Hey, how do you fold that mask?" So I'm going to put that in the chat right now.
Awesome.
And so there is that YouTube of how to fold that level 2 mask.
And in answer to the other question, yes, UPLS and HIPAA. It depends on which model.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, perfect. Well, you guys have cleared the board here today. So if there isn't anything else to get in, I guess we can go ahead and let you guys just kind of finish up or have any final notes. And certainly, Doc, we'd love to get some plugs from you.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love you guys, if you're not on the Business of Dentistry and you don't listen to the Dear Doc podcast, please check them out. I can't say that I love the sound of my own voice, but evidently it's pretty popular on the podcast.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend being involved because you're going to get to see stuff in the Facebook group, also with the podcast. There's just a lot of good info going down. We picked up 4 or 5 really big tips today from you, and I really appreciate you being on with us. It's been a tough 6 weeks. Continue to keep us updated in the state of Texas like you have been. I'm very appreciative of that. And I know all the dentists in Texas are very appreciative of just your attention to the details that are going on right now. So, and thanks for being with us, buddy. And I will talk to you
anytime, Bruce. And thanks for inviting me. And Stephen, I've been reading your shirt the entire time. I variously read it as do good and doggood. I'm not sure what
it says do good. It says compassionate finance on the sleeve. I have 2 of them. I am rotating my shirts. I have gotten email inquiries about, is that the only shirt you own? Are you okay?
Well, guys, for those of you who don't know him, one of Bruce's just most poignant sayings is do well by doing good. And I'll leave you guys with that. You guys go out, do well by doing good.
Good for you. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Thanks, Stephen.
Brother.
And tomorrow we're talking for an hour on Abella and Compassionate, just questions. It's just going to be Q&A for an hour. So that's always going to be fun. So thanks again, Chris. Appreciate it, buddy.
Later, guys.